No!
So today I'm going to be doing an oil change on this 1999 Honda Civic. Pretty much bare bones stock. Vehicle has 201,000 miles. Gets pretty good gas mileage for so many miles on this bad boy. We're showing about 32 mpg in the winter and about 37 mpg in the summer. I'll show some clips. There's plenty of videos out there of people doing oil changes to show you how, but I'll show a few of the things I use, maybe the safety precautions. Anybody can do this. It's a little expensive at first to get you some parts, some tools, materials, supplies, but once it's all said and done, something you should be proud of to do on your own. First thing I do is I warm up the car to an operating temperature. Once the RPM stabilize and the temperature goes up, then your oil's good and hot, and you're able to drain it down completely, or at least about as good as you can. Once I've warmed it up and I'm able to cool it down just for a few minutes before I end up removing the drain plug. These Hondas are pretty good cars. As you can tell, 200,000 miles on a car that still gets above 30 mpg. It's well worth the investment. Preventative maintenance is key for any vehicle. May not look the best on the outside, but it's just a good car. So I'm going to proceed with letting it warm up, and then I'll show a few of the safety precautions and some of the items, tools you may need to do an oil change. Next thing I do is I chalk the rear wheel, and you can use just about anything that can support the vehicle from rolling back. I'll come over here, and because I'm not the thinnest guy and I don't have the ramps or a expensive lift, you can use yourself a jack up the car. I support it with jack stands because I'm going underneath the car and safety is key. So those are a few things you should take into account when changing your oil. Yes, I am in Colorado, and it is about 50 degrees. No big deal, that's why I warmed it up. So the vehicle requires the 5W30, and since I'm changing the oil, I just take the cap and I set it to the side, give it a little ability to breathe, along with my oil dipstick. Just bring it slightly up so nothing falls in, but I do have a little ability to breathe. Now on the 99 Honda Civic, it requires a 17mm, and I use a little breaker bar on the drain plug. Manufacturer recommends that you always replace the seal on those drain plugs. Other items you may need: some good gloves, don't get the oil on your hand if you can avoid it. Extra rags, lots and lots of rags, just in case you mess up or make a spill. I've got a little stubby here. These are 3/8 for that 17mm drain plug. Make it easier than just sitting there cranking it on that cheater bar. Got me a nice drain pan that's empty, that can hold quite a bit, and that's 15 quarts, so we got more than enough. We're gonna walk over here. I got more rags and more stuff to use. So I drain my drain pan into a empty container, and we'll get to it. First we'll start with draining the oil pan, remove the filter, let that drain, and we'll tighten it up, and we'll be back in business. Alright, so once I let the oil drain for quite a bit of time, you can tell that I've got it at a weird angle, so I'm not going to get it all right. Well, that's why I leave the jack attached and the jack stand to the side. They're both supporting the vehicle, but I'll go ahead and remove the jack stand and lower the car down until I'm pretty close to the drain container, and we'll go from there and let it drain for a little while. Then I'll lift it back up and remove the filter. Okay, so with the filter removed, drained, I was able to get all the fluid out that I could, being on the surface area that I am at. Went ahead and I'm going to take this over to our local shop, auto parts store, and just have it recycled. And yes, rags, growing children, easy to use. If they're not in any good condition in which you can give to someone, I always use them for rags. Could always use an extra rag. So I'm going to be going with the Fram. It's pH 3593 alpha on my filter. Nothing too specific about it. It is a commuter car, so it doesn't require anything special. I do use a synthetic blend for the oil, I recommend, and for the 99 Honda Civic it's a 5W30, and I use the high mileage blend just because I've got over 200,000 miles on the car, and it is just a commuter car, but better safe than sorry. So if you have any questions besides what I've already specified, now's a good time to take a look at your fluids, your brake fluid. If you have a clutch, check out the clutch reservoir on your master. Top off the windshield wiper fluid, especially here in my state where it gets pretty chilly and might need a little defrost fluid to keep that windshield clean. So for your torque specs, I believe it is 33 foot-pounds on the D16 Y8 for a 99 Honda Civic. I believe that goes through 92 to 2000. So just give you a heads up. And yes, crush washer should be replaced as well. But we don't have one, so we're not going to replace it. I haven't seen any signs of oil leaks from it. We're going to keep going. So a good thing to do, and I recommend it, is just get yourself a little bit of oil on your finger, nice and clean, and just put a little bit around the sill. And a good reason for that is so that it will not bind up as you're screwing this in. Some manufacturers recommend that you put some of the oil inside the filter, but due to the fact that the filter is on its side, if you were to do that, you're liable to spill it, right? So if you can put about half and try it and it works for you, great. You know, I don't have that much luck being the limited space, but it is something you can do. If your vehicle has a filter that is coming from down beneath and just straight up, then yeah, you know, fill it up. It gives the vehicle the ability to prime quicker, to get oil to those severe spots that the motor needs in order to maintain clearances and whatnot. So just another heads up on that. We got these oil filter wrenches that if you need, you pick one of these up at your local hardware store, like a Lowe's, Harbor Freight, even an AutoZone or an O'Reilly's. I usually have to use one on this car since I only change it about every 9 months. It's good to have, hard to get your hand out. So alright, so once you've filled the oil up, make sure you put the required amount in, whether it's 3.5 or 4.5 or 5 quarts, whatever it may be. Make sure you run the car, don't overfill it, run it back to operating temperature, shut the car off, let it sit for a few minutes, check the oil, top it off as needed. The 2 dots on the dipstick are the indications, low and high. So you want to have a happy medium in those 2 dots. So verify your level and call it a day. And once you've got everything cleaned up and your jack stand and all that put away and oil recycled, and hey man, you've done it. It's easy as money once you do it a few times. So now we've got fresh oil, and that little rectangle, you slide your key in and that will reset the maintenance required indication. That indication is driven by the odometer, so once that lapses so many miles, it starts to turn yellow, and then so many more miles it starts to turn red, and you can see that tiny little green. So it's been reset, car's good to go. We'll do a walk around, make sure there's no leaks, and then we'll check the level when the engine's off and and has cooled down for a few minutes. Check the level, verify we're in between the 2 dots, and then we will go for a walk around again, check the tire pressure, and it should be good for a few months of highway travels and take me to and from work. I wanted to say thanks to everybody for watching, and have a good one.